Hey guys, what's up? It's Diana, welcome back to my channel, and today I thought we would talk about common misconceptions in YA literature. I am probably going to get some shit for this video, but you know what? I'm prepared for that. We're going to roll with it because it's important that we talk about these things. Now, if you admit to anyone that you read YA literature, you've probably encountered at least one, if not all, of the statements I'm going to be discussing. And before we get into it, I do want to say when I say YA genre, it's a bit of a misnomer because YA genre is not a genre. It's an age group. It denotes the audience this material is intended for, and it denotes the age of the main characters within the book. It's not actually a genre because you know what? There are multiple genres within the YA genre. There's science fiction, there's fantasy, there's contemporary, there's romance. Come on, I mean seriously, why did they name it this way? So that's what I mean when I say YA genre. For lack of a better term, and because that's what everybody's calling it, that's kind of what I have to call it. So yeah. And I also want to state that I am 35 years old, and you will find out why that's important a little bit later. So whenever somebody asks me what kind of books I read, I generally say, well, I read a lot of YA books. And they say, don't you read real books? You know... So let me ask you a question. If I beat you upside the head with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, is it gonna hurt? Yeah, then it's a real fucking book. This whole real book, fake book discussion pisses me off, and by the way, you don't want to go there with me because I've got 2 English degrees, one in English Lit and one in English and Creative Writing, which you know if you watch this channel. So yes, I've read your classics, I've read your Hemingway, I've read your F. Scott Fitzgerald, I've read your Jane Austen, I fucking read it, okay? Chances are, if it's studied in a classroom, I have read it multiple times over the course of my academic career. So yeah, I know what you mean when you say real books, and yeah, I've read real books, but also, you're a fucking asshole. Stop asking this question. All books are real books. Which invariably segues into the next thing they say, which is, YA books are kind of superficial. I mean, they're really not that deep. And if you like reading from the YA genre and you're part of book Twitter, you see articles go around about all of these things all of the time. And I have to ask you, have you ever actually read a YA book? And if you have, has it been within the last 5 years? Because the answer is probably no. You just can't make statements like this when The Hate You Give, American Street, With the Fire on High, A Very Large Expanse of Sea, When the Moon Was Ours, hell, even The Hunger Games. You can't make statements like that when these books exist because they tackle very difficult topics with grace and nuance. And they do it in a way that makes it accessible to young readers. And I'm a firm believer in the idea that books breed empathy. So not only do these books have an impact on young readers, they help shape them into the people they will become. And when you say shit like that, you are not only downplaying the effect of these books, you're downplaying the effort that goes into creating them on the part of the author. And I'm a living testament to the fact that these books that I read when I was young have turned me into the person I am sitting in front of you today. Now, of course, you're going to say some books are just there to be read and enjoyed and have fun. They're not trying to say anything deep. They're not trying to change the world. And that's fantastic too, because you know what those books did? Those books made me feel less alone. And I spent hours with those books when I was feeling sad or upset or lonely, and they changed my life. So even though they had no great message to impart, they still had a huge impact on me. But really, pick up any of the books I've mentioned and then get back to me, because I guarantee you, you're not going to think that if you've read them. Another thing people like to say is YA books are full of love triangles. You know, that's fair. There are a lot of YA books that have love triangles. There are a lot of YA books that don't. There are a lot of YA books that don't have any romance in them at all. But more than anything, I think people miss the idea that love triangles are a great device to explore the idea of choice. They represent dichotomies in the paths you can take in life. And it's not just about, should I pick this person with blue eyes and messy hair who makes me laugh, or this person with green eyes who's a bit of a jerk but has a heart of gold because they've been through a lot. It's not really about that. It just represents a discussion about what you want out of life. And it lets the reader explore those choices in an arena that is pretty much free of real-life consequences. It helps them discover who they are and what they want out of life. I mean, the love triangle is pretty much the embodiment of that Robert Frost poem, Which Road Do You Take? And I actually hella appreciate that about love triangles, because it aids in the process of discovering yourself and finding out what your wants and desires and needs are, and how you can fulfill them, and what will fulfill them. So don't shit on love triangles. Plus, they're pretty much everywhere. I mean, it's not just in YA literature. And personally, I would rather read this kind of love triangle than the love triangle written by a straight white male about his middle life crisis and falling in love with his female student when his marriage is on the rocks. Because there's a million books like that out there. I just think people don't give enough credit to the love triangle and the different ways it helps people figure their shit out. The next one's got to be one of my favorites, because a lot of people are saying, especially now, that people only write YA because that's where the money is and it's popular. Oh, and I gotta say, man, oh, man, yeah, I don't... That's hilarious. Let me break this down for you because, I mean, I feel like this is coming up more often because all the six-figure deals are being published. Now, the thing about six-figure deals is that they are not common, which is why you hear about them. So it seems like they're happening all the time, but they're not happening all the time. They're super rare. So you know how when you're sick and you're Googling symptoms and you're trying to figure out who else has these symptoms and what they were diagnosed with? And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, all of these people have these debilitating diseases. I'm probably next. That's because you're specifically seeking out that information. This is your search parameters. Of course, you're going to run into the people that you search for. It's the same sort of concept with YA literature. Yes, these deals are being announced and yes, they're being blown up on the internet, but the majority of deals are not being blown up in those proportions. The majority of deals are average. I think V.E. Schwab once posted a breakdown of what her advances were, and they started at like $12,000. And I know Susan Dennard breaks down advances in her newsletter. If you are at all interested in writing in the publishing industry, you should definitely subscribe to that newsletter because it is a wealth of information that is essential. It's fantastic. She is 100% upfront and honest and open about everything with regard to writing and making it your career. And it is essential if you want to get into the industry. But advances can run anywhere from the $12,000 to the $50,000 to the millions. But again, the millions do not happen often. They just don't. So let's take a decent size advance, which is from all my research around $50,000. Now, right off the top, you have to cut out 5 to 10% for your agent. And then you have to put a third of it away in the bank for your taxes because that's a whole clusterfuck of a situation. Jesus. I mean, really hire someone that knows what they're doing because you are your own small business and that is hella confusing when it's time to do your taxes. So you're left with 2/3 of your advance. Now, that advance isn't doled out all at once. It's split up into parts. Generally, you get part of your advance when you sign your contract, part of your advance when you turn your manuscript in, and then part of your advance when you're actually publishing the book. Which means you have to split your remaining funds into 3 portions and make each portion last until the next portion kicks in. And if you know anything about publishing, you know the timeline is wonky. So when I did the math, writers make less than $20,000 a year. $20,000 is actually being generous. Nobody can live on that much money per year. They just can't. So if you think YA is where the money is, whew, you're really, really, really wrong. And then some idiot usually says, well, YA becoming so popular is ruining the rest of the literary market. No, it's not. It's really not. Your book's just not that good. Like, I don't know what you want from us. And by the way, you're probably that guy that wrote that book about the affair he had with the student when his marriage was on the rocks. So if you're saying that, then you're probably that guy. And you should just stop. Like, just stop doing all of it, speaking and writing. Another thing people love to say, and this is where my age comes into consideration, YA literature is immature. There is a difference between saying an entire field of literature is immature and there are characters within that field of literature that are immature. Because one is true and the other is not. And you know why they're immature? Because they're fucking 16. We're gonna get into a little bit of an aside right now because the people that buy YA literature statistically are the 30-year-old women. They're my demographic. We are the ones that have the buying power. Unfortunately, this means that we are part of this problem. Because YA literature is not written for us. YA literature is not written for us.
Not written for us.
We just enjoy reading it. So when you leave your 1-star review saying, these characters felt really young and they made some dumb decisions, this is you, and this is the point. They're 16, 15, 17. You know, what did you do when you were 16, 17, 18 years old? Because I know I made some really bad decisions. I bleached my hair, dyed it black, became an emo girl, and chased after everyone that looked like they needed saving. Not a good decision at all. Even now, I make crappy decisions, and I am a moderately fully functioning adult. And I want you to think back when you were 16, because I guarantee you, you did not make sound decisions. Before you post that 1-star review, stop. And remember, you've got 20 years experience on these kids. Of course you're going to make better decisions. Of course you're going to think that they've made dumb decisions. It's not about you, okay? Just knock that shit off. You're making us look bad. Now, if you're online all the time like me and you're part of book Twitter, you've probably seen the next one come up several times, especially in these articles with these hot takes. And it's the idea that YA literature should or should not contain insert element here. Now, this is usually said in regards to like cussing, sex, gender identity, sexual identity, substance abuse, things like that. Everyone's got an idea on what should be allowed to be written into YA literature. And this is annoying because no one is right or wrong. Because it isn't about the what, it's more about the why. It's not what you're writing into your books, it's why you're writing them into the books. Particularly, I find this incredibly damaging when people say, well, you shouldn't write queer characters into the books because if the kids read them, then they're not going to know what to do. They're going to be confused. No, they're not! They're not going to be confused. You know what they are going to be? They're going to be just fine. In fact, they're going to be great because they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's normal. That tracks. And if they are part of the community, they're going to be like, oh, wow, that looks like me. Wow. I mean, that's amazing. I'm a little less alone today. They're going to be validated and they're going to be shown that there's nothing wrong with them. And that's what you're so afraid of? It reminds me of those arguments from like the beginning of the 18th century when they're like, women can't read the books because the books will give the women ideas and we don't want the women to have ideas. It makes no sense, okay? It makes no sense. And you only have this argument with regard to gender identity or sexual orientation. It's not how it works. You can't just read about a gay couple and then all of a sudden you're gay. That's just not how it works. What is wrong with you? In what world is showing the variety of human experience and human nature a wrong thing? The sex discussion is just wild. You want to write sex into your books? Great. You want to not write sex into your books? Fantastic. You want to write fade to black sex scenes? Good for you. You want to write explicit, awkward, romantic, any kind of sex scene? Fantastic. Good for you. If you want to do it because this is what you like to write and this is what you like to read, fantastic. If you want to do it because you want to show an accurate representation of your own personal experiences, fantastic. Although I do have to warn you, be prepared to show up with your receipts because people are going to question you no matter what you do. And unless you're willing to talk about all of your experiences publicly, you're going to be lambasted. Good job, community. Really, it boils down to write what you want, know you're going to get attacked no matter what you write, and to just know why you're writing it. That's the best anyone can do. Most recently, I think there was the discussion of clean YA versus, well, what's the alternative to clean YA? Because sex and cursing isn't dirty. It's just not. It's not. I don't know what's wrong with you people. Why are you categorizing things like this? Ugh. I don't know. You want to be aware of what you're putting into the world, but you don't want to be so aware of it that you're not putting things you should be putting into the world. Because there are kids that are going to need these books. They're going to need to know that they're not alone. Their experiences are valid, that their emotions are valid, that there's people in the world that support them and see them. And there's a lot of responsibility in it. There's a lot of responsibility in doing anything worthwhile. We live with it. It's what we do. And I feel like we have these discussions every couple of months when one of those Slate articles or Medium articles or Vox articles pops out and everybody's all up in arms about it and sharing their hot takes and subtweeting. And it's just a nightmare, really. So my advice to you, if you want to write about YA literature, is to fucking read YA literature. And not just YA literature that took place 10 years ago. I mean, everybody loves The Hunger Games and Harry Potter, but it's not the only shit out there. And read widely. Read from different genres within the YA world. Read authors of color. Read queer authors. Read everything you can get your hands on before you make dumb statements like this. Because you're pissing me off. And I don't like that. So yeah, this has been fun. Kind of, yeah. I don't really know what's going to happen when I post this. I'm sure I'm going to piss someone off. But that's fine because I've been doing that my whole life. And I'm pretty good with those outcomes. All that being said, I still do love the YA community and book Twitter and booktube. And anybody who loves books is great in my book. I mean, that was repetitive and redundant. But I do have a lot of love for this community. I'm a part of this community. It's a part of me. We live in a symbiotic relationship and it's fantastic for the most part. I just think that the people who don't know what they're talking about should either learn about what they're talking about or shut the fuck up. And that's like actually across the board overall. Everybody who doesn't know what they're talking about should really just not. All right, that's it from me, you guys. What's your least favorite thing people say about YA literature, and what is your favorite thing people say about it? I want to hear some positives, actually. So tell me what you love about it, and we will wax poetic in the comments, or we'll get salty, whatever works for you. I'm Diana. I post videos usually on Tuesdays and Fridays, if I want to, and I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day and be excellent to each other. Bye!